everyone, welcome to another episode of Vinyl Fetish. We're up here in the vinyl attic for another one of our 100 albums you need to have in your collection, 100 required pieces of vinyl that should be in your collection. And we're really taking on a great record today, much delay after I had to track down a missing copy. King Sunny Ade and his African Beats 1982 album, Juju Music. There's a little backstory on this. So King Sunny is from Nigeria. Nigeria is the largest populous nation in the continent of Africa. Was under British control for many years, got independence in 1960 in the wave of decolonization. We'll talk about decolonization in a little bit. And he was hugely popular with this Juju music in his native homeland. He was one of the biggest concert draws in Africa. In 1981, Bob Marley died. And Bob Marley was sort of the exponent of non-Western music to the Western world. If there was sort of one artist who didn't come from England or America, that came from the African diaspora, that people generally knew, was Bob Marley. So when he died of cancer in 1981, it left kind of a gap in the world that was starting to become known as world music. Music from outside of sort of white society. So Island Records, that was really formed around its partnership with Bob Marley and its promotion of early ska and reggae music, was looking for another Bob Marley. They were looking for another global artist to fill the void left by Marley's death. And sort of the obvious choice was King Sunny, who was doing this amazing music in Africa. King Sunny is from the Yoruba tribe, and Juju music, the notion of Juju is part of an animist religion, the casting of spells. And the best way to describe this music is hypnotic. I'll tell you, I was working on a record store in 1982 at Turtles Records in Stone Mountain, Georgia. Somebody who knew a little bit more music than I did opened this record up and put it on the turntable in the store, and we all fell into a trance. The songs that King Sunny and the African Beats play live, when they play them live, they can be 20 minutes long. So they had to sort of shrink these down. They worked with a French producer. They brought in some Western instruments, including the synthesizer and the pedal steel guitar, to augment the African music, which is largely talking beats and the sort of hypnotic rhythmic songs. And whenever we put on Stone Mountain, Georgia, I mean, you have to remember, Stone Mountain, Georgia is the birthplace of the Ku Klux Klan. Stone Mountain, Georgia is deep south. We would put this record on, and people in the store would just go, what is that? What is that record? And we sold so many by people just hearing it in the store and wondering, what? I've never heard anything like this in my life. So this record is really important because it's really the beginning of the world music genre, when music from Africa and Latin America and even Eastern Europe and Asia and India start being exported to the West. You know, we started getting a little bit of this in the 1960s with the popularity of the sitar music, thanks to the Beatles and people listening to Ravi Shankar, who played sitar at Woodstock. But in 1982, in the wake of kind of Bob Marley opening the door, there was this new genre of people wanting to seek out African music. And I remember I was 18 years old. I couldn't learn enough. That summer I went to school in London and really just tried to find all the African music I could find. It was a little bit easier in London than it was in Stone Mountain. And so this record is sort of that moment where there's the birth of a new genre, but it's also an incredible listening experience, because you're hearing East meets West. You're hearing these talking drums, which groups like the Talking Heads had sort of brought into their music. If you listen to Burning Down the House, that's an African talking drum from Nigeria. These guys live were amazing. I saw them several times during the tour for this album, the follow-up, Synchro System, and you have a good dozen people on the band. Every Nigerian immigrant within a 100-mile radius would be at the show. One of the things that they would do, which is apparently a custom in Nigeria, when King Sunny was playing and getting really sweaty, people would go up and put dollar bills on his sweaty forehead, kind of like tipping their favorite musician. And it shows were otherworldly. And so, you know, we get stuck in our kind of genres. World music sort of helps us see how big the world of music is, how different the structures are, the call and response. Some of the stuff that is rooted in African American music goes back to places like Nigeria, which was a primary place of capturing slaves. So a lot of that African culture sort of makes it through the the dark passage to the United States and to Cuba and to Brazil and all the other places that slave culture kind of settled. But this record really changes the landscape, and it is, to this day, one of the most hypnotic records to ever listen to. I challenge, we'll put a link to the Spotify version of it in the description. I challenge, just give yourself a few minutes settling into King Sunny's record. It is such an important record, and one of the things it teaches us about is the power of colonization. Colonization, you know, the imperialist world, the European world and the American world wanted to extract resources from less developed nations, places that had fewer guns, basically. And they went in to get people in the form of labor, in the form of slaves, but also the natural resources, including the minerals and the crops, and to quote-unquote own these places. And Africa was kind of divided up between the European powers, and Nigeria going to Britain, and to extract the resources, but in the process brought in their culture as well, including the language and some of the musical instruments. King Sunny plays an electric guitar. I mean, you can see him playing a Fender to this day. And so there is this attempt to sort of steal from the culture, but there's also the blending of cultures and the resistance to colonization that became the widespread move in the 1960s of African nations finding independence and finding their own journey, sometimes falling into dictatorship like in Uganda, sometimes finding relative democracy like Liberia. This record really sort of captures how the white world is always going to the black world to find new resources to profit from. Just like they profited from Bob Marley, we're going to find the next African artist. But in doing so, the other side of the coin is, besides the exploitation of black artists by the white capitalist music industry, is some of this information gets out. Some of the ideas about Juju get out. Some of the ideas about the beauty of African culture from its source get out, and it creates a global resistance. Bob Marley is seen around the world as a symbol of resilience and resistance to white supremacy. Wherever you go to this day, well into the 21st century, Bob Marley is a symbol of rebellion. This music coming out of Africa is both a product of colonization, but also provides some fuel for the fire against colonization and recognizing the autonomy of African people. So this is just on a listening level, brilliant. It just sounds like nothing else you could ever imagine, but also kind of teaches us a little bit about the global divide and the role music plays in colonization and resistance to it. I mean, it's just a great record. You really want to have it in your collection. Next week, speaking of the European world, since there's so much talk about the Beatles' Get Back project and the Beatles are in the air, we're going to talk about Paul McCartney's kind of sometimes forgotten about 1982 album Tug of War and why that fits into the Beatles canon. We'll be doing that next week. But this week, we're listening to King Sunny today. We're listening to Juju music, the African beats. This music matters. This record matters. You matter. So let's talk about it.